I think there was so much in what you said, and just maybe one of the things that really struck me when you said at the start was that there is no other type of counselling services that limits and that is limited and controlled in the way that our reproductive services are. And I just think, what does that say in terms of how we treat women? Okay, we're now going to move on, and our next speaker is Doris Abuchi Ogbonda. And Doris works with Cairde, and many of you may know Cairde. It's a community development organisation which works to tackle health inequalities among ethnic communities in Ireland. And Doris herself, before coming to Cairde, has been involved in numerous campaigns in human rights. She's been a practicing barrister, and she's also part of the International Federation of Women Lawyers. So we're really thankful, Doris, that you could be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I'll start by thanking Evelyn for doing the groundwork for me, the theory and some of the statistics are out there. So I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll just go in straight to say that from Cairde's perspective, we provide information, advice, and advocacy. But I'll tell you a story. It is a story of a woman who came to Ireland, had 2 previous pregnancies, and each of the babies died within hours of birth. With the 3rd pregnancy, she went to the hospital, and as usual, all the checks were done, and she was told that the 3rd baby would also die within minutes or hours of birth. And the baby was diagnosed with defective deformities, which was related to the other 2 births and deaths. And she didn't want to carry through this pregnancy. She came to us. Her story to us and her sharing with us was that each time she walked on the street, the same way people extended courtesy to a pregnant woman, the same way people shared joy to see a pregnant woman, they extended to her. But in her heart, she was carrying such a pain, such a burden. How could she accept the compliments? How could she stare them in the face and smile and not be able to tell them that this is not what I want, this baby will not live. I don't want to carry this baby through. But she was made to carry that baby and give birth to that baby. That is one story. The second story is of an underage girl who had fled war, only to arrive here and find that she was pregnant, about 8 weeks pregnant. Again, a victim of rape. She didn't want to carry that baby through, her pregnancy through, and she couldn't access abortion. We were helpless. Sometimes Cairde is a one-stop shop for migrants. As you know, we're a community development organization working to tackle health inequalities among migrants. Sometimes they would have gone around within communities, within organizations, within service providers, and can't believe what they hear. So they come to us hoping that we would understand, that we would have the magic wand to make a difference for them. We can't. They're looking for information, how to access abortion. It's not possible. We can't advise them on the way forward. We can't even advocate for them. Because like I said, sometimes we're a one-stop shop. When clients come in, we provide them with information, we advise them, and we can advocate on their behalf. How do you advocate for the woman who's made to carry a 3rd pregnancy, of which the baby would not survive after birth? How do you advocate for an underage girl who had been raped and told she can't have an abortion. What are the challenges we face? One is culture. As you would know, most migrants come from a background where culture plays a huge role. Some of this culture is a culture of silence, a culture of not sharing. You might know from your interaction patterns that it's not easy for a migrant to share certain personal stories. So even when they come to us, it's difficult. Some of us are not psychologists, we're not counselors. So we're not able, even at that stage, to handle the emotional part of it. So it takes confidence, it takes guts for somebody to come and open up to you to that extent, and you're helpless. The effect of that is that they believe that there's nothing that can be done. In the case of the underage girl, she was so emotionally traumatized. She had mental problems because when I say mental problems, is she just couldn't understand why it was happening to her. So, from a culture that is dominant, a culture that does not recognize the rights of the girl child. I'll take myself for an example. When I was married, I was told that the reason I was being married was because they had hoped I would produce up to 10 children, because my mom had given birth to 11 children. And that was shocking. So you would understand when I say culture. So the culture has already given you a role. Baby making factory. It's giving you a limitation. You're disempowered as a girl child. You've no right. You've no right over your own body. And that's why rape can occur even in marriages, but it's not rape because dowry or bride price has been paid. That's a culture that admits a bride price. Tied to culture is religion. I'm sorry, but I'm just speaking, I didn't write that down, but I noted my part, so don't expect any favor to come. But tied to culture is religion. Most migrant countries, let me refer to Africa, where I come from, would have what you call African traditional religion, those who pour libation, and those who call on their gods to do things. So the fear is already imbibed in you that you dare not terminate a pregnancy, even if you're going to die, because you would die. The gods would smite you dead if you did that. So coming here, a lot of migrants come with, that limitation, and again, with an expectation of a different life. So when there is no legislation that gives you rights to have decisions, sorry to just say this, you might know that even as a woman, I have no right to consent to surgical intervention, say for example CS, if I needed one, except my husband consented. So if you get into this space, you want to have something, which is legislation that gives you power, that empowers you. Within our settings, when we joke, we go how Europe over-empowered African women. That's the joke we say to ourselves when, we chat and we go, how did you do that? Wow, thanks to Europe, how Europe happened. So yes, we need such legislation to assist migrants be able to raise their voice, speak for themselves, have a right to challenge things that are not right. Because I tell you, even within homes, it's still happening. But then the culture and the religion is imbibing you, and in a way is affecting the way you act. So the legislation or the amendment to the 8th Amendment would be very, very welcome. What's the next thing facing migrants? A lot of migrants would be without status. When we say status, they have no legal entitlement to live here. Some are timed out, they become undocumented. And within that context, we all would have heard the stories of asylum seekers in direct provision and getting 19-year-old. And so they can't travel out to access abortion. just like those even with stamp 4, because even when you get the stamp 4 to live here, you still have to get a visa, you have to apply for it, you have to say where you're going, and all that. And all that, again, is linked to finance. Most of the migrants are engaged in low-paid jobs. The ones in direct provision get 19 euro. So the finance to even pay for the termination, assuming you are able to get the visa to leave, is another aspect of it. So what are we saying? In Cairde, it's very difficult to provide information to migrants seeking to terminate. And the two examples or stories I shared with you were experiences within Cairde. For the underage girl, we don't know how she coped after having the baby, but she was needed to have the child. What are we saying? The home is where the heart is. This is our home. This is where our heart is. We should not make this place our home and get rights somewhere else in UK. What we're asking for is that this is home. Our rights should be gained here and should be enjoyed here. And by amending or repealing the 8th Amendment, we would get the rights here where our home is. By going to UK, what we all do is we live here, we enjoy rights somewhere else. This is our home, this is where our heart is. We should enjoy the rights where our home is. Thank you.